I finished my book. Hi, my name is Julia. Welcome to the first video on this channel. And since this is my first video, you have no way of knowing anything about my project. So let me tell you everything about it basically. It is a fantasy duology. The first book, the one I'm working on right now, is titled If the Stars Had Spoken, and the total word count is 64,000 words. I know it's a very short novel, but that is because this was not originally intended to be a duology. It was meant to be a standalone novel, but that didn't happen. So as I was drafting, I mostly pantsed it, honestly. I realized that there was just too much story to tell in one novel and that I just needed to split it up in 2 books. I was talking to my mom and she was like, you should just split it into 2 books. So I was like, okay, you know what, you're right. So I found a place to split it, and I had 84,000 words before I split it into 2 books. But now the first one is 64 and I have 20,000 almost in the second book. But I am not going to continue drafting the second book for now, just because there are so many changes that I know I want to make to the first book that I feel like it would affect what happens in the second installment so much that it's not really worth it to draft before I know, before I have a better idea of what I want the first book to look like and its, finished product, or closer to what it will be in its finished product, and then I'll have a better idea of, maybe I should move this here to the second book, or maybe I should have put this in the first book, or, something like that. For example, there's a romance plot, kind of subplot. It's pretty important, but there's a romance, and I feel like maybe I have too much of that in the first book, and so maybe I want to move more of that to the second book, and have that be more prevalent in the second book instead of the first, because maybe the first book is more of a setup to these characters and the plot, and there is a mystery in the first book, and so maybe I want it to be more about that instead of the romance. So there is a lot that is, that is subject to change. That's what I was looking for. So I want to get a better idea of what the first book is going to look like before I move ahead with the second one. But with all of that said, I now have a finished draft of the first book, which is really exciting. It is actually the first draft that I've ever managed to finish of a full novel. I've been writing my whole life. It's not a new thing for me, but I've always had trouble sticking to one singular project. I've always jumped from one to the next within a few weeks or a few days or whatever. I would write the first few chapters, the first few paragraphs, maybe even the first few thousand words, and then I'd be like, no, I'm good, I'm bored, I want to move on to something else, something better. This one's not good enough to finish, so I would move on. But thankfully, this was not the case with this book. It has taken me so long, but I've finally finished. And actually, I've written most of this book within the past month. So the timeline for this is I started plotting it in March 2024. I got it was not really plotted. I started, writing what I want in an outline document, what I want to happen, but so much of that ended up changing anyway that it didn't really end up mattering. Is mattering a word? It didn't really end up doing much for what I have right now, because honestly, most of what I have right now was pantsed. I just maybe plotted as I went along with the book, or just there's a thing called headlight writing, I think, where you plan something a few chapters ahead. So there wasn't really one specific method that I used for this book. I kind of just did whatever I felt like doing, whatever I thought would be good for the plot or the characters, and yeah, now I've ended up with a draft. So there's a lot to be done. There's especially a lot to be done because, like I said, I started plotting it in March of 2024. I started drafting it in April, and I was drafting pretty well throughout the summer. I got about 20,000 words done, and then I took an obnoxiously long break from writing. I didn't touch the manuscript from November to April of this year, but really I didn't write anything from September to April. I kind of tried to do something in November, but it didn't really amount to anything. So I basically lost the motivation to write this book. I worked on another manuscript for a bit, and then I came back to this one in April. It is now June 5th, 2025. Wow. Yeah, I came back to this manuscript like 2 months ago, basically. And what I did in April was I used the NaNoWriMo website to set a 50,000 word count goal over the span of a month. And so I ended up writing 50,000 words throughout April and May, which is ridiculous. And I don't know how I did that, but I did it. I wrote 50,000 words throughout April and May. And then I ended up writing 10,000 more words after that. So then I got to a point where I was like at 84K, and then I kind of stopped, where I kind of like fell off there. So on May 19th, I was like, okay, I'm gonna take a little break from this. And then I was like, I'm gonna come back to this in a few days. I never really ended up going back to it until the other day, which is when I was talking to my mom, and she was like, you should split it into 2 books. She's actually been telling me this for a while now. She was like, you should split this into 2 books. You should just make it a duology. And I was like, okay, you know what? You're right. Because I realized that the second like part of the book, or not the second part, like the third act basically, was going to be extremely long. One, it was basically centered around a war and like plotting a war. And I feel like those types of books tend to take up to like 700-page novels sometimes on their own. Just the war part, just the, you know, the plotting the war part. Those can take really long time just for that to happen. And if it's going to be part of like the rest of an entire book, it's kind of ridiculous, and it's going to be extremely long, and this war could take a really long time if I want it to be properly executed and properly like effective. Not only the war was going to be happening, but there were other plots as well. That, and I introduced a new character during the time of the war, like before the war happened. I hadn't even written the war at 84,000 words, and I had just introduced a new character, and I still had another plot to finish, and my character was spying, and so there was a lot going on. It's like a ridiculous amount of things going on. And so I was like, this isn't gonna work out in 1 book. And so I split it into 2 books at the 64,000 word mark. And then all in one night, it took me like 7 hours. I was delirious by the end. It was like midnight. I formatted my book and I sent it off to Barnes & Noble Press to get a personal print copy so that I can annotate it and edit it with like a physical form. I used like a cover that I designed on Canva just like as a placeholder, but I think it turned out cute. And so now I have to get ready for revisions. When that book comes in 2 weeks-ish, less than 2 weeks actually, I'm really excited. Today's the 5th and it comes on the 18th, so 13 days. And I'm gonna start revising, which is crazy. I've never revised a book before. So this is my first time with this experience. And like I said, this book is pantsed, so there's a lot to be done, not only in the editing process, but before the editing process, because there's so much I have to do to prepare for it. So, wow, that was a lot, but now I can finally tell you about the things I'm planning on doing within this video to prepare for revisions. As I told you already, I started writing this book last year, and since then, I've written like 70,000 words maybe, and so I've had a lot of experience since then, learning about myself as a writer and, you know, writing as a craft. And so the beginning of the book is a little bit rough. That's gonna be tough to edit, but it's fine. You know, since it was rough and pantsed, there's basically no world building at all, which is really unfortunate. The extent of the world building is like, I have 3 cities, basically. I have 3 cities and none of them are named. And so every time the name of a city would come up, I would either call it the city, which isn't really functional at all because obviously, or I would literally just write underscore, 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 and that would be what the characters would call the city. And that was it. And that's not great. That's not ideal at all. So I have to do a lot of, you know, world building, naming these cities. There's also different like countries and different things that are mentioned in the second book, especially too, that I have to also name. And not just that, but also like the government and like the politics. Like there's like, I name people like lieutenant and like general without actually knowing if that rank is what that means. Like I had no idea what I was doing because like I said, I was pantsing, and so I didn't want to take a break from writing to just look up this stuff, which is really stupid, but that's what I did. I did not know like anything about my book. as I was writing it. So I have to basically figure out like the politics, the government, names of the cities, and last names for my characters. There are none, and that is just terrible. So one character has a last name. I need to come up with last names for my other characters because they're mentioned and it's pretty important, obviously. So I have to come up with last names. There's also a character name that I want to change. There's a lot to do to prepare this book for the gut job that it's about to go through. So that is what I have to do in terms of world building. And then there's other things I want to do for myself. I want to learn as much as I can before, you know, my copy comes, before I start revising. I have extensively studied writing and like, you know, taken like tons of notes on it, and like I am good about that. Like I love studying the craft of writing, but obviously there's always more that I can do and more that I can be learning. So I did get Save the Cat and I never finished it. I was annotating it, so it was taking me a while to read, and I only got like 20 pages in, and then I kind of started reading the Shatter Me series and didn't pick it back up again. I want to finish reading Save the Cat to kind of help me structure this book properly, because there is no proper structure. So I want to finish reading Save the Cat, see what story structure I want to use, maybe the 3-act story structure, which I think usually that's the structure that I go with. So I don't know, I'll see. Maybe I'll just read it through and then go back and annotate it if I want to finish it quicker, and then like, you know, get as much as I can out of it. Maybe reading it twice would help. I don't know. We'll see what I do. We'll see what I have time for. I'm probably just gonna end up reading it and not doing like extensive annotating like I was before. Like I was doing some crazy amount of annotating before. So I don't think I'm gonna do that, but we'll see what I do just to, you know, help me finish reading it. And also I was watching the Brandon Sanderson lectures. If you don't know, he's one of like the most prestigious authors of our time, and he has an entire college class put on YouTube for free just for writers to watch and learn about writing, which is literally such an amazing resource. It's so incredible. I've already watched a few lectures and they've been amazing. Honestly, it's so entertaining. It's so fun. It's like listening to an audiobook or like a podcast. It's great. So there's that. Also just like to improve the craft of writing, and then also just like some other things that I want to do. I need to order new highlighters because I only have like 2 that work, and I want to get them to match the cover of the book, so I can like annotate, and the cover is navy blue. So I want to get like maybe blue, maybe purple kind of highlighter so that I can like coordinate the colors, just make it super cute and more fun that way. And I also want to get tabs to, you know, properly annotate it. I want to do like a color code kind of thing for like certain problem areas. Like for example, maybe like a light blue for like, I don't know, a world building problem, or like a dark blue for a character continuity issue, so that I can be able to tell easily what needs to be changed and how. So that was a lot of talking, a lot of information about my book, but that is currently all the plans I have right now. So in this vlog, I'm just going to be taking you along with me during the, you know, preparing process, and, you know, we'll kind of see what happens and how much of this stuff I can actually get done by the time the book arrives. Normally people say that you should wait like a few weeks or a few months even before getting back to your draft, but since I wrote so much of this, you know, a long time ago, and since I've written like 20,000 words since seeing these last words that I wrote, I think it's already been a while since I've read most of the stuff, so I don't have to wait exactly as long, but we'll see what ends up happening. If I have everything done and I can immediately start when it arrives, or if I'm not done with everything, then I'll, you know, finish, wait a few days, and then get started. But either way, whatever happens, I'm really excited to get this project into like something I can really be proud of, and, you know, into a better, more complete state. So yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do right now. I might go to Barnes & Noble to do some writing. There's also like a book I want to get. I want to get some Agatha Christie. If I do end up going, I'm not sure yet. And then also like, you know, just sit at the cafe and get some ideas, you know, onto a document, hopefully, for my world building and the things I was talking about. So yeah, we'll see what ends up happening. I might just stay home, but I guess we'll find out. I will see you guys whenever I update you next. back for an update, and this is just going to be very casual, quick. I hold the phone and just fill you in on what's happening. Today is the next day. It is Friday, June 6th, I believe. If I'm not hallucinating and getting the day wrong. But anyway, last night I ended up going to Barnes & Noble, as you saw in the last few clips, and I got there like 8:15 p.m. and the store closes at 9 on Thursday, and so I only had like 45 minutes to do everything. So I kind of crammed to, get everything done that I wanted to do, but I ended up, having a pretty successful trip. I got the book that I wanted. Let me just show it to you. It's an Agatha Christie collection of like 2 novels and like 25 short stories or something. I started it last night, and let's just say I was thoroughly confused. I had no idea what was going on. I got like maybe 20-ish pages in, maybe not even. And we're in this house with the main character, and it's just basically a bunch of people that I have no idea who they are or what they're doing there. I don't understand. Who's Cynthia? Who's John? There were so many people, and I have no idea who any of them are and what they're doing in this random house. So I'm going to keep reading on, and hopefully I'll understand it a little bit better, and it's probably going to pick up because it is a mystery. But right now, I have no idea what's going on, so it has successfully confused me. But anyway, I'm still glad that I got it, and I'm still going to keep reading it, obviously. But anyway, in terms of writing, I sat at the cafe for like maybe 20-ish minutes. I made a list of, the things that I want to name, the things that I want to decide on, and I started brainstorming a few like city names. Unfortunately, world building isn't my strong suit, so I only came up with like 2 names that are very much subject to change. But you know what? Anything is better than nothing. Anything's better than calling my, main city ____. So that's at least an improvement. Today I was brainstorming some character last names in the car. I hope that I can properly recall them. I'm just slowly inching my way towards figuring everything out. I still have like 12 days. It's not like I have too much left to do that I can't finish during that time. I was telling you about this in the first clip, how I wanted to finish the Brandon Sanderson lectures and finish Save the Cat, which I actually have with me right here. I read like 20 pages of it today, and I'm planning on reading more. I think it's going really well because like as I'm reading, as the author is like explaining things and talking about different plot points, I'm actually thinking about my own book and how I can incorporate those different things into my own story, and thinking, okay, well, maybe this could happen here and that could happen there. So that's a very good sign. It's going very well. But I have not listened to any Brandon Sanderson today, which I need to get working on it. I still have like 10 hours worth of lectures to listen to, and I've only listened to like 3 of those hours. So I do have a lot left to do, but it's all very fun, very exciting stuff.
Hey, it's voiceover me. I just wanted to apologize for how abrupt the ending of that last clip was. I did not get proper footage of me, wrapping up that update. So I just wanted to say I'm sorry for that mistake on my part. But hopefully we can move past that and, get to the next part of the vlog. Okay, bye.
It has been a while since we have spoken. Today is June 17th. You all know that my book was supposed to arrive tomorrow, but a week ago, on the 10th, it ended up arriving that day instead of the 18th, which I did not account for. I did not think that was going to happen, so I didn't plan for it. But basically, me being my very, unfortunately, impatient self, I started revisions that day instead of waiting and getting everything done that I wanted to finish. I did get a good amount of things done. Like when I found out it was coming, I immediately ordered highlighters and tabs to do a full physical read through, and I did name my characters and do that stuff, name my cities. But I did not get to finish Save the Cat or the Brandon Sanderson lectures, which honestly is fine because I do have a plan to make up for, what happened. It is not a good thing that I'm impatient, and I probably should have waited to be properly prepared, but I have been waiting so long to get my hands on this copy, I could not hold myself back. Anyway, what I'm planning on doing is, while reading Save the Cat, I'm going to, go back and find how each act almost can like fit into the act in Save the Cat. I might not follow it exactly beat for beat. I'm going to loosely use it as an outline for how I want my structure to flow. I typically do use a 3-act story structure, so that is going to be very helpful. With the Brandon Sanderson lectures, however, I do need to finish them. I'm on the world building episodes right now, so hopefully that'll help me out a little bit, you know, just overall with my, you know, world building issue. Overall, however, I'm now like 70 or 80 pages into the read through, which I've been going very slowly. I've been extremely busy, so I haven't been able to, you know, really sit down, really get stuff done. I'll do like maybe a few pages, but it's been, you know, fine to go at a slow pace because I feel like if I go too fast, maybe my quality of, you know, work won't be as good. So I want to make these revisions, you know, as good as I can for at least the first pass, just to like get as many good ideas I can for this read through. When I was drafting, I was kind of writing mediocre stuff, and I was aware that I was writing mediocre stuff because I was like, oh, it's a first draft, it's okay. But now for the second draft, I don't want it to, you know, be mediocre. I want it to, you know, really take it to the next level instead of just staying at, oh, this is okay. I know I can do better, but I don't want to, you know, waste my time on that. This is the time. Right now, it's not I'm wasting my time on making better stuff. Right now, it's okay, I should come up with better things because that'll, you know, improve further drafts. And if I put out better work from now, then it'll also improve my work later on. So, you know, I kind of had to think about these things. For the first draft, I think it's fine for it to be a little messy, to be a little chaotic, like all over the place, because, you know, it's just getting the story out. But now that I'm, you know, really going back and, you know, making my changes and trying to improve the story, I think I want to put out good work. I'm trying to, you know, come up with the best ideas that I can. So far, I don't want to jinx myself, but it is going well. I have not come across, you know, like the biggest problem areas yet. Like, I know that it's just going to get harder and harder to kind of keep up with because I know that a lot of things were, you know, pretty messy in this draft, but so far it's honestly not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be like, oh my god, this is terrible, but it's not that bad. Some stuff makes absolutely no sense. I'm just staring in amazement at the page that like, wow, I wrote that. That is scary, but you know, not bad for a first draft. I might have expected it to be worse. So far things are going well. I do want to make a revisions vlog, like an entire vlog just about my revision process, how things are going, you know, what I'm doing. I think that would be so much fun, and that's definitely going to come next. But this has been definitely more of like an introductory, welcome to my channel, welcome to my project, this is me kind of vibe. I know it was very chatty. I definitely talked a lot, but I'm very excited to keep working on this project and to take you guys along with me on the journey. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to call the vlog here just because I'm not really revision prepping anymore, as was the original idea for the vlog. I hope that I will see you next time.